Good evening. It is a few minutes past time. Sorry to get us started late, but our guests this morning had to slowly make their way in and say hello to everyone. So we're just a little bit late getting started, and that's okay. A few announcements to go over before we get started. Ed Cooper is scheduled to come home tomorrow. Sympathy to Larry and Kathy Crawford. Larry lost his sister this past week. Don Cowart is home, but on oxygen and not feeling well. Donna Klinkenbeard, Judy Hayes' sister, is recovering from 2 fractures in her pelvis and also has been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. Shirley Holloway, the sister-in-law of Debbie Dotson, was diagnosed with stage 4 uterine cancer and will begin chemo tomorrow. Don Williams Sr., who is the father of our Don Williams, has melanoma, and they've discovered on his head, and he's going to see a specialist in Birmingham in the next couple of weeks. So keep all those folks in your prayers. Tonight, we are fortunate to have Mike and Jenny Johnson with us from East Point, Florida. A lot of you, some of you, maybe not all of you, know the story of our history, our church, our congregation connecting with theirs. Some of you, this will be a repeat, but I'm going to tell it anyway. In the late fall of 2018, we were in an elders and deacons meeting, and I just said to all the men in there, I'm looking for something that our youth group could do to give back to some kind of service project, some kind of local mission trip of some sort. And Greg Garner looked my way. He said, see me after we're done. I've got just what you need. And that was shortly after Hurricane Michael had hit East Point, Mexico Beach, that area down there on the Gulf. And they were still recovering from that, of course. Me, Katrina, Dave Patterson, and Joe Stickles took a group of 15 teenagers down there for part of our February break. And we helped unload a truck from Church of Christ Disaster Relief out of Nashville. We distributed all those supplies and that day, and then we spent another day or two down there. We got to know Mike and Jenny a lot better over those next 1 or 2 days, and we realized quickly that they needed us more than just to unload a tractor trailer. There was and still is lots of work to do down there. They have worked hard over the 6 years. You've been there 7 years now. 7? 6 years that they've been down there, and have helped a lot of folks physically, but more importantly spiritually. And to see the growth that our youth group has seen, and any of the other adults that have gone down there have seen over the last 6 years, is pretty tremendous. Growing the congregation from 3 to 45 to 50 on a Sunday morning. Is that still accurate? And when we're down there, it's like 75, which is a really neat thing to see in that small building that they meet in when we're pushing the walls out. But it's been a great thing for me personally to be a part of. It's been even better for our young people to see how other folks live. The poverty down there is widespread. The education system down there is not great. The job opportunities are not great. But Mike and Jenny, along with us and a few other congregations across the Southeast, help out and try to make life a little bit better for them, and also try to introduce the love of Jesus to them. Mike's going to speak to us tonight for a few minutes on the work that they're doing down there, and maybe at the end, if there's questions, I'm sure Mike is a former school teacher. He knows what this means. So if you have any questions at the end, I'm sure he'll be glad to answer. Is that okay? Okay. All right. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Mike.
Hello, family. I always love to be here with you. Jenny and I do. I always love to speak to you because that's what we are. We're family. Appreciate Jeremy for that introduction. At supper we were talking about, people talk about all that Jenny and I do, and we actually explain this to some of the people that we work with, but they will say, oh, thank you, thank you, thank you, and we'll say, don't thank us. I said, we're just the middlemen here. I said, there are congregations all over the Southeast, all over the country, who love you and want to help you. And I said, we want to help you, they want to help you because we love Jesus. And Jenny put it so well, I thought, at the meal. She said, it's God over all. They inspire you, He inspires you to help us, and then we are able then to help the people of the community. And she said, so it's just one big effort with God at the top. And I loved that. I thought that was such a good way to put it. Here you see, if you turn some children loose with a marker board and markers, you know what happens. Actually, we didn't turn them loose. This is a marker board in my classroom. I had the markers put away so they wouldn't do all their scribbling on that. They found them just the way they find everything. But when I saw what they did, I thought, that's good. And I wanted to share it with you tonight. And this one on our right, this is from a little girl named Jaden. You can see her name right at the top, but she says, the church loves y'all. And I think Jaden is sending that message to you tonight, that she loves y'all, and we love y'all for what you do. Jeremy has already covered our history there. We went down to help the preacher who was sick, James Lee, for 1 month, and we are celebrating our 75th month now, and God has blessed us with that. It's been, I think Jenny would agree with me. I know she would. It's been the best 75 months of our life. God has given us something to do, and we love what we do. And this is the basis for what we do. We share the Word of God. You can't see Jenny behind me in the picture there, but God allows us to do also what we do and go from door to door and pray with this couple in the apartments near us. But He lets us spread the Word, and He lets us pray with others. This is one thing as we work together under God that we have to remember is no other foundation can be laid. The foundation is already laid. The foundation is built upon which you labor and where we labor together. And one thing we try to communicate over and over in our community, and I know you do here, is today is the day of salvation. And I usually say that the part as you are invited, particularly if it's on a Sunday, I will say, at the end of this, I'm going to give you an opportunity to obey the gospel, and it's not too early to start thinking about that now. Here, many of you know this place, know places like this. Yes, this is not condemned and it's not abandoned. People actually live in this. Children live in this. Jeremy was talking about the poverty is widespread. This is fairly characteristic of the places that we labor. But one thing that's good to do when you begin a ministry, Jeremy is right. We actually arrived at the end of July 2018 to a grand old congregation of 1. And from there we have been able to grow. These are some core members that we have. This is Tony Hurt on your left. Dirk and Kathy Strunk, they are both teachers in the education system that, yes, pretty much is a failure, I must say. But they work very hard. They are a shining light there. Gary and Sandy Hall on our left, they moved from Ohio when they found out that there was a viable congregation in East Point just to help us build a church, and help they do. And this is Milton and Sandra Cole. They are newlyweds. Milton, at his 80-something, moved down to Apalachicola to marry Sandra, and they're just as sweet as two little buttons now. And Sandra has just been diagnosed with cancer. We were talking with her on the phone and praying with her on the way down here. So remember Sandra, very sweet lady. And then what you hope you can do once you build your core congregation is you hope that the core congregation will get bigger. And they are getting bigger. These two ladies are such an asset now to our congregation. They have been there actually quite a while now, but a short time to us. This is Marcia White on the left and Nancy Barnwell on the right. Marcia was restored several months ago, and I had the privilege of baptizing Nancy last summer. Marcia helps with anything she can, and Nancy loves to bake. You can see Marcia on the right. She is cleaning up the kitchen after the Sunday morning breakfast. Tommy and I were talking about Colin and Job during lunch. Job has had to move away. I'll show you a little bit more about Job in a little while. And on the right are Vincent and Pam Korecki. They began studying with let me back up. We began studying with their son who had attended and asked for him to come to his house and have a Bible study. We did, and his parents sat in and listened, and they became more and more interested in learning the Bible, and they were baptized probably about a year ago. And they were a great asset, although unfortunately they had to move to Port St. Richie south of us. So what we have come up with is a pretty good mix, a variety of children, older folks. The one on the second from the right, near and dear to our hearts, that's Miss Dwayne. She's about 98 years old, still lives alone. That was the day that Tommy and I went and visited her at home. But we have a good mix of folks. And this is Tony on the left. He's cooking the bacon for the children's breakfast. And here you see just 3 out of many of our children having their breakfast on Sunday morning. Jenny and I have a rather thriving jail ministry. This, on the left is we're with the chaplain of the jail ministries. On the right are 4 ladies of the probably at times 180 people that we see. And we love these. You know, we have murderers, thieves, drug addicts, drug sellers, and we meet them in jail, and they're just family to us. These 4 little ladies here, we love them so much. We just don't see any distinction between them and people on the outside. And here was a baptism that we had with them about a year or so ago. Now, thank you. Yes, all that's done. Hold the applause. Now we'll show you what you really came to see. I tried to get all the preliminaries out. Now, yes, we will show you the children. And I was thinking about these verses, particularly the first one, where Isaiah said of the coming Messiah that a little child shall lead them. And yes, we teach the children. We lead the children. We do our best to bring the children to Jesus. But then one thing we notice is, where are the children taking us? Because they are taking us somewhere as surely as we are trying to take them. And here 3 of them are, and these are our precious babies. We love them so much, and we know many of you know them, and we know that you do too. This young man on the left is George, and I don't know if I have a slide of them, but we have what we're so proud of. For the first time, we have a youth group, and it's a really big one. We have 4 children who have graduated from Jenny's class, and we've started a youth group, and Jenny and I meet with them on Wednesday night. They are hungry to learn the Word. They are hungry to be baptized. We're so proud of them. On the left, we have George. He's part of the group. George was abandoned by his mother many years ago, and he's being raised by his grandmother. And many of you will know who I'm talking about from my monthly reports when I talk about Montana. Montana is his first cousin. She too was abandoned by her mother. The mother was in the house, passed out on drugs. Montana was maybe 18 months old. She had figured out some way to unlatch the door. They found her in the road. Somebody picked her up, and of course Child Services picked her up, and she came to a good place with her grandmother, a very sweet lady, and that's George's sister, and his story is virtually the same. The little lady in the middle is named Kaylee. Kaylee is such a wonderful child. If you haven't met her, when you come down, we will make sure that you meet her personally. She is one of the ones who's graduated from Jenny's class and is part of our youth group. I don't even know really how to describe Kaylee. I'll just start with heart, but she works with the children. She's been so instrumental in helping Jenny organize her classes, take care of the children. She has a real mothering instinct, but at the same time, she wants to be in the youth Bible class. She wants to come to worship. She is taking it up a notch, and she's just a wonderful asset to the church. And the little lady on the right, that's Jaden, who wrote you the message, and she's holding baby Violet, whom I've probably spoken of in the past. Jackson on the left, I'm not hurting him. I'm really not. I know it looks like it. But Jackson, I was riding on one of Jenny's routes one day, and Jackson was just pitching a fit and carrying on. And so finally I got him up in my lap to try to help him calm down. This is Patty Cake we're playing. And the pitiful part is he was so entertained by Patty Cake, but because he had never had an adult to actually play childhood games with him. And it was just, I still do that. A couple of weeks ago, he was there before Jenny got back with her second load, and he was crying and didn't want his mother to leave and all this. And I said, come on, Jackson, let's play patty cake. Everything turned over then, but he's never had anybody that would just play simple games that our children are all accustomed to. As you know, I'm sure, the picture on the left, every week before our service begins, we let the children come up and sing a few songs with us. This is very not representative of what we have now. This is controllable here. Now we have a circus that we try to contain, and sometimes we'll barely make it through a song, and I'll say, Jenny, don't you think it's time for them to leave? And she'll say, yeah, let's get them out of here. But we love that, and most people who watch our service on Facebook, they tell me this. They watch until the children sing, and then they don't watch anymore. So that's fine. At least they see that. The little girl on the right with Jenny is Oakley, and if you think that she looks like a little princess, she is a little princess in every form of the word, a little diva if there ever was one. And I'll just take a few moments to talk about Jenny. Y'all don't mind, do you? If I just talk about Jenny? When I grow up, if I ever do, I pray to God I can be like my wife. Jenny, I was thinking about this today. I used to say, Jenny, I would see her coming with all these little children, follow her along, and I'd say, well, here comes Mother Duck with the little ducks. But there are too many. No mother duck would have 40 little ducks now, so that doesn't really fit anymore. But I guess what I want to say is Jenny is the mother of East Point, and you can actually ask anybody, and they will tell you that, whether it's from infants to middle graders or all the way up to teenagers. I actually have a much better picture of Jenny in this setting, but she won't let me put it in. She was in the hospital after a baby had just been born, and she's holding the baby. And that's what I wanted to show you, was from newborns all the way up to teenagers, but she won't let me show it to you because she had to have one of those, plastic caps that you have to wear in a hospital, and she thinks she looks funny. But she did not look funny. She looked beautiful. And the picture on the right was one of the holiest moments I've seen this year. But what I like about it, this was a picture of Jenny leading the children at VBS. But what I like about it is I can see the child in Jenny. She wasn't just someone leading the children, but for just a few moments, she got to be a child again. This little lady to her right is named Nicole. I wish we had been able to add this slide, but we just didn't have time. This little girl, Brandy, her sister, will be in my report this month, but Nicole is all dressed up and cleaned up here. That's not always the case. Nicole has two younger sisters who live in a place, that home that I showed at the beginning probably looks really good compared to where they live. Those girls are no doubt just rife with every kind of parasite that you can imagine. You can actually see the lice crawling on their heads, and they stink so badly. And they don't have shoes to wear to church. We're right where y'all may remember the mythic 4 little girls that started all of this. Well, we're right back to that. But I tell you, these are probably the sweetest children I've ever met, and they are hungry for food. Yeah, they're starving for food, but they are more hungry for love. And they will actually come to us and say, "Can I have another hug?" That seems to be more important than the food to these kids, and that's why we do it. That's why we do this, and that's who you help. That's why you do this. But that's why we do this, is for little girls and little boys like that. It's no big surprise that Jenny finds notes like this on her table at the end of class. As a matter of fact, I can say without fear of correction, I saw one on her table that she'll find when she gets back on Sunday. Now, we have a family that we just visited. This is my brother. My brother-in-law is Jenny's brother, Joey, but I think of him more like a brother. This is Joey. Before we came here, he teaches a class at Heritage Christian University in Florence, and we went by and spoke to his class. Joey has been instrumental in helping us. Of course, this is a VBS. This little lady with my hat on in the middle is named Emily. She is or is going to be one of the newest members of our family when she marries our nephew. And this is another nephew, Abraham, on our right. He played not volleyball. What do you call that? Soccer? Football overseas. They were playing after church, after the VBS. This is our niece Gracie on the left, our other niece Sophia on the right, and behind Gracie back there is our son, Lan, and they are all so good with the children. Lan is a grown man now, but he's as good as anybody at taking care of kids. These people, let me just put it this way. There was a line from The Wizard of Oz when Dorothy said about somebody, "People come and go so quickly here." Well, these are some of the goers and comers, but I'm not going to go into this. But there are some people who just make your life in ministry very difficult. And these are 3 of the great difficulties that we have survived. This I will explain why I have this in here. This was actually for the class at Heritage. And I did go into detail with them because I wanted those young men to understand what they were really up against, that it's not all playtime and fun. You can have people who are a menace to ministry. But that is not for you. That was for those young men. These are fine, upstanding members of the community, so we'll go on with that. I'll talk to you in particular about one one child. This is Marcus. Jenny and I were in the van one night in Carabel, which is very unusual, and I don't remember why we were in the van, but we were over there. And Marcus and I think a sibling or two and the mother and daddy pulled up by us in the van, and they saw the sign on the side of the van, and they said, "Do y'all pick up children for church?" And I said, "Jenny does, and we really want our boys to come." And we said, she will be glad to pick them up. So Marcus was so excited to come. But let me just preface all I'm going to say. I hope you can see on the left and middle picture, Marcus has anger issues that I will go into more in just a minute, but let me try to just set that up before I get into the particulars of his life. Marcus faces every kind of neglect and every kind of abuse, without me going into detail on that in polite company. But if you imagine abuse, yes, the answer is yes. Whatever you're thinking, Marcus faces that on a daily basis. Jenny was talking to him one morning on the way into church. First of all, when we first got him, we couldn't understand what he was saying. He was about, 6 years old? But he was inarticulate. We didn't know what he was saying. Over time, that got better, but she was trying to talk about something with him maybe that they could converse about, and she said, "Well, how was your night? How did you sleep?" And he said, "Oh, I slept great." He had stayed with a babysitter, which is actually Jaden's mother that I mentioned earlier. He said, "I spent the night with that nice lady last night, and I slept really well. She made me a bed. She made me a pallet on the floor." And Jenny said, "Oh, well, is kind of like your bed at home?" And he said, "Oh, no, I've never had a bed at home." That was the first bed. The pallet on the floor was the first bed that the boy had ever known. The pictures, I call this slide the two faces of Marcus. The two on the left, I don't know. One day, while Jenny had taken the first load home, and I was watching the second group of children waiting for her to come back, Marcus got really angry, and neither I nor the children could ever really figure out why, and he started hitting and kicking the other children, and I walked over to him to try to calm him down, find out what was wrong, and he decided at that moment the best way to take out his frustrations would be to start kicking me in the shins just as hard as he could. And I don't know if that helped or not, but he did eventually calm down. But the way I got him to calm down is I talked with him about his class with Jenny and what a good time he had had, and we had served some cake and ice cream, and I got to talking with him about how good that was and how much he enjoyed it. And slowly it came back down to what you see on the right. It was amazing, but that abuse and neglect that the boy faces every day of his life, and all he ever knows, it surfaced on the two pictures on the left. And the right, you can see what just a little bit of the love of Jesus does for somebody. And you know what? It does, and it has done the same thing for all of us. We had a group come down from Florence Boulevard, and we had a VBS with them. It was very successful. We had about 65 children at that VBS, 40 of whom stayed. So that was a big amount of growth, too much growth. Jenny tries to teach those 40 in a room about, I don't even know how to compare it, but it's tiny. Each child has 6 square inches to stand in. No, it's more than that, but it's a very, very small room for 40 kids. This is a group from Madison. They came down. We had a very successful food giveaway and a good door knocking campaign. This was the second holiest moment that I've experienced this year. The second holiest. A group, the Madison group, came down and they asked us, what did we need help with? How could they help? And this is an important part of ministry that Jenny and I just frankly never are able to get to, but that's visiting the people in the nursing home. And we said, let's do that. Let's visit them. So we went out. We had a great time with those folks. This is the second holiest moment, and I think it speaks for itself. But I loved that moment. I felt God in that moment. I felt His Holy Spirit, and that was a good feeling. And I felt that once more and greater, and I'll talk about that in a minute. This was a group from East Colbert, and they came down, and we had a very successful day with the children. But what if, just hypothetically, what if there was a group of people, there was a congregation who lived many miles, many hours away, and they would devote their funds from the church, their personal funds? What if they would give up big chunks of their time to have food giveaways and clothing giveaways? Wouldn't that be something if we had people like that? There was one thing Jeremy left out in the intro. Yes, we've had the groups that I showed you a moment ago after Woodstock, after you. You can't understand the situation Jenny and I were in. We had no idea what we were doing after this storm, Hurricane Michael. No idea. We were completely alone, as dumb as bricks, as how are we going to do this? We'd never even looked at a natural disaster, much less been responsible for taking care of people. But the main thing I'm trying to get across to y'all is we were alone. We were two people alone. And we were sad. And we were afraid. And y'all came. And yes, you helped us take care of 3 towns, not just East Point, but 3 towns. Yes, you did that. And yes, you helped us take care of children. And yes, you come 3 times a year to make sure children have clothes and food, and they have a backpack so they're not ashamed to go to school with the other children, that they have school supplies in those backpacks so the teacher calls for something and they say, I don't have it. You make sure that never happens. And it never happens. No child in that town goes to school. It never happens. But the thing that gets left out of this picture is you came for us. You came for Jenny and me when we had nobody. And we remember all the things that you've done. And yes, I'm not looking at you, but we remember all the things that you have done and will do and are doing. But you'll never know. You'll just never know. The bottom right-hand picture shows what's typical when you come down. This is a line to pick up food and clothes. It's about a quarter of a mile long, and yes, the sheriff does have something to say to me when it spills back over into Highway 98, and I'd say, just give us a minute, but he loves us. The sheriff, we unofficially actually have a license to drive as fast as we want to in town, because AJ, our sheriff, figures if we're in a hurry, it's important. But he does sometimes say you're going to have to get these cars off of Highway 98. But that's typical of how it looks. Jeremy, I appreciate you. I love you so much. Jeremy always helps. He always wonders if the preacher wouldn't like to have a little break from preaching, and the answer is yes, and any of the rest of you. The top right picture, I've been looking forward to getting to this. This was the holiest moment that I have experienced this year, and one of the holiest ever. But you see what happened on the night before we had the food giveaway. We pushed tables together in the auditorium, and we thought we were just all sitting down to eat, period. That was it. But we pushed those tables together, and we sat down for a meal that you, Woodstock, had prepared. And suddenly, I just very rarely had that kind of feeling in my life, but I looked around, and it was just a family sitting down to dinner. It was just a family. And I felt God's Spirit in that moment so much that He was the head of the family. He was God of this family. And He was right there blessing us, and just as happy as we were. It was amazing. Thank y'all for just letting me be a part of that. Matt, thank you. Matt came down and carried packages for us. I had this picture of Caroline because she helped so much on what I call on the line. She would be with, she would meet the cars when they were coming in the line and give them our periodicals, the address of the church, invite them, and then when they came across to the end, I would speak to them and pray with them. But I'll miss Caroline very much because she's graduated from youth to young adult. But Caroline is also an example of so many of you young men and women who did the same thing. And I have watched you, many of you, grow from when you were just little boys and little girls out there doing it. And Jeremy's right, you have grown so much. And you are already such wonderful ministers to the Lord. And whatever you do as a vocation, there's always room for ministry. And thank God for you, and thank God what He's doing in your lives already. Greg and Susan are actually where it all, well, Jeremy told that. Greg and Susan are where it all started between you and us. We met Greg and Susan when we were still in the little red church building that many of you, except Susan, may not have seen. But that was the church building we were in that was destroyed by the hurricane when we moved to the building that y'all are familiar with. But we had been there only a few weeks, still just filling in, just bopping around. Hey, month's almost over. We'll get ready to head home. And the month's almost over, but we're not ready to head home. That is home. This is home. But they came, and we first met them, and they had been helping the preacher, James Lee, for years before they met us when he was away sick. And we met them, and they had brought down, I think, sheets, some kind of bedding, and some clothes. And we met, and Jeremy told you that he said he wanted something for the youth to be involved in, and Greg said, got just the place for you. Well, we're the place. We're the place. And thank you. Susan, by the way, thank you for your hospitality this day and this night. We ate Susan out of house and home. We made her take us places to look at things all day. She'll be glad for us to go because we just worried her to death. I'm closing very shortly. If we took a roll call, most of you know Tommy. Tommy is, as I told some of you, people in East Point and Apalachicola think Tommy is my son. Neither Tommy nor I ever contradict that. Tommy is, without a doubt, the best evangelist I've ever seen, and probably the best one I will ever see. He has been evangelizing the town with me and Jenny and all since he was 5 years old. He's 11 now. He has walked many a mile over those two towns with me to door knock and invite. A congregation bought him that bicycle just so we didn't have to walk so much and we can cover more ground. Last summer, it was my privilege, honor, one of the greatest honors ever to get to baptize Tommy. Jesus told this, and he identified 5 deplorable conditions: hunger, nakedness, loneliness, incarceration, and not having decent clothing. But then he identified those 5 deplorable conditions to himself. And what an honor and what glory and what love and beauty he did for us when he said that. Think about it. When our Lord and Master said, as much as you do to one of these who are hungry, thirsty, lonely, incarcerated, or do not have decent clothes, as you do to one of these who are right in front of you, he says, you're doing it to me. I can't imagine God allowing us to do that. And Jesus saying, it's for me. And I am closing with this. Jesus, when he raised people from the dead, he didn't abolish death. He raised some people from the dead. When he healed people of blindness, he didn't do away with blindness. He healed some people for blindness. And everything the Lord Jesus did, he did to make a point, which so that men would glorify God. So when you and I give food and water and clothing to people, it is looking at it from the spiritual and heavenly angle. It is a metaphor for what we're really giving. Because when we come down to hunger and thirst, yes, we give it away physically, but there are those that are hungry and thirsty for righteousness. In other words, there are those who don't just hunger to do right, but there are those who hunger to be right. And Jesus said that when we do for them, then we are doing it for him. When Jesus says that we visit the sick and the lonely, he is reminding us that he, through us, is putting the lonely in families. And if any of you here, family is a struggle tonight, this sweet group of people will welcome you into a church family, and they will be your family. And when we go to the prisoner and visit, Jesus is speaking to the prisoner that we all are. Jesus is speaking to the prisoner, the one who is imprisoned by his or her own sins. And Jesus is saying that we will be freed from that. And when we give decent clothing to someone who is poorly dressed, or even in some cases naked, people we have known who had nothing, what Jesus is wanting us to see is that he provides the white clothes of the redeemed. So when you supply and we distribute, Jesus is reminding us in Matthew chapter 18 that we are doing it for a heavenly purpose, we are doing it for him. And I don't know what time it is. I guess you're thinking, well, you could have looked right there. There's a clock to remind you, and I've only now seen it. And I have only seen it now. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to keep you too long, but once you start, Jenny or me, talking about our work, we can talk all night long. And I will. Oh, no, that I didn't get any applause there. But thank you. Thank you for having Jenny and me back again. This is our favorite trip of the year. I know, I don't tell everybody that where we go. But thank you for having us back again. Thank you for all you do for the citizens of Appalachia, East Point, and Carabel. And thank you so much for what you do for us. We don't feel by ourselves anymore. Jeremy, I feel like I may have taken up the question and answer time, so I'll take them real quickly. Anybody? Going once? Yes, Jeremy. I recognize the gentleman in the, yes.
What do you need now?
We do need something. We need to restock the pantry, but mostly what we need is baby formula. We are having more and more calls. Tommy and I was telling some of you at supper, Tommy and I had to go get baby formula and take it back immediately to a mother and then go back to Appalachia to buy the Sunday groceries. It was dire. So we need baby formula, we need diapers, we need most of the supplies that babies would need. It seems like we're getting more calls for what else, Jenny? Supplies, cleaning supplies. We're having more and more calls for cleaning supplies too, because our folks who clean the houses on the island have to supply their own cleaning supplies, and many of them just simply can't afford that, so we try to help them out with that. So cleaning supplies, things for babies. Jenny, is there anything else that I've overlooked? Do we need food in the pantry? That's what the last time I looked, the last box full I got out it was. But those are the things, Jeremy, the children, the babies, first and foremost. Anybody else? All right, speak now, forever ever hold your peace, because I'm sitting down.
Thank y'all for being here with us tonight. I hope this helps to paint a picture for the rest of us on what happens down in East Point. That area is nicknamed the Forgotten Coast, and you'll see it on a couple of signs as you're pulling into town, and it kind of is forgotten. The population isn't huge. It's just an hour or so from the state capitol, but they don't get a lot of attention from the state capitol that they could probably use, and a lot of the government support that is needed, but it literally is the Forgotten Coast. Mike touched on Jenny, and I want to not look at her. While I tell this, and I've told it before, on Sunday mornings, Jenny gets up early and grabs their 15-passenger van, and she drives to the neighboring town of Carabel and picks up a load of kids. And then she drives across the county to Apalachicola and picks up a load of kids and drops them off at the building. And then she runs around to East Point and she grabs a bunch of kids and drops them off at the church building while Mike's there cooking some and feeding those children that a lot of them haven't eaten since they left school on Friday. They're desperate to get there, as Mike mentioned. They're desperate to get there to get the food, of course, but to get the love that Mike and Jenny supply them. I've watched Jenny, when we've done clothing giveaways, when a lady comes and says, I need shoes of size whatever Jenny is, she says, oh, let me go inside and I think I've got those. And she takes the shoes off of her feet once she gets inside and puts on a pair of old flip-flops and hands that particular lady her own shoes off her own feet. And it doesn't get much more Christ-like than that. When I come before the congregation 3 or 4 times a year asking for help for Christmas presents, school supplies, food, whatever it is, what you donate to us for us to take down there or ship down there or whatever it is we do, it does not go to waste. It is not just tossed into a car as they come through the line and sent on their way. Mike mentioned Caroline. She started when we first went down there and just jumped right in and started just, hey, welcome to the church. This is the information on the church. She talked about Jesus. She offered to have Mike pray with him, and others have followed her lead. I say that to let you know that we're not just giving them stuff and sending them on their way. Each one of them, each car, each person that comes through gets introduced to the church. Some of them come back, some of them don't. But that's just the nature of ministry, and a lot of us, or most of us, probably know that. But we are reaching many folks, and it is a great thing. So when I come to ask you for help, when I stand up there or here and say, hey, we need 200 backpacks, it's effective. Your donations are going to a great work. And so thank you for your help in supporting us, supporting them, helping our students go down there and see what life is like. A handful of you have been down there and have seen it firsthand. I encourage more of you to go if you get the opportunity. It's a short 6-hour drive. But it's so good, and I encourage all of you to go if you get the opportunity. Anybody else have any more questions or anything for Mike or Jenny? You can grab them after we're done here. I would like to ask our youth that are here tonight if you will meet me and Mike and Jenny up front right after worship, right after I say this prayer in just a minute, real quick, and we're going to grab a picture of all of y'all together. And we'll do that real quick before any of y'all can snag Mike and Jenny. All right, let's bow our heads together. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this day, and thank you for all the many blessings in it. Thank you so much for this evening that we've had together, for our Bible classes downstairs, and for us to meet together tonight to learn more about the work that's going on in your name down in East Point, Florida, in that area. We're so thankful for Mike and Jenny and what they mean to us personally, but more importantly, what they mean to serving you and the hard work that they do down there. And we're so thankful for them and them being in our lives. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to serve not only here in our own congregation, but to serve the congregation of East Point and the community surrounding it. Thank you for being so good to us when a lot of times we don't deserve it. Please watch over all the work that we support, all the work that's going on in your name throughout the world, so that folks will get to know you and love you before it's too late. Thank you so much for all you do for us. Please watch after Mike and Jenny as they travel back to Florida. And it's in your son's name we pray. Amen.